gather round, we've got a story to share. Richie and John, they always care. Championing voices, fierce and strong. Tune in, turn up, you can't go wrong. Life and love, they're here to fight. It's Newsday Tuesday, let's take a stand. With Richie and John, let's shake the land. Voices of truth in every sound. In this podcast world, our hope is found.
The Mutual Broadcasting System presents Richie and John, the podcast that connects you with the people, events, headlines, and lifestyle interests of the global LGBTQ+ community. Here's Richie Roy and John McMullen.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Richie and John. It is Newsday Tuesday again, and what a week. I mean, what a last couple weeks, but honestly. But, every day there's just another thing to think about, and we've got a ton of news stories for you this week. But I'm here with my co-host, John. John, how are you doing?
I'm good, and, I recall what you said on Saturday about one of the keys to living healthy right now is getting a grip on your media diet. Yeah. And that's something that I have really done, because until it was time to get ready for tonight's broadcast, I've really been paying attention to as little news as I possibly could. But it is important that we stay in touch with what's going on in the world around us. And so here we are, once again, gathered to talk about all the BS. So let's get into it. We got a lot tonight.
We do. And we're going to start off with LGBTQ young adults facing a depression crisis in higher education. So there was a recent study that revealed that LGBTQ plus college students are over 3 times more likely to suffer from depression compared to their non-LGBTQ plus peers. The research, published in the Journal of American College Health, analyzed data from nearly 500,000 participants in the Healthy Mind study, which covered the years from 2007 to 2022. David Pagliaccio from the New York State Psychiatric Institute emphasized that our findings highlight a growing mental health crisis among LGBTQIA plus students that demands immediate attention, urging schools to address the issue. Notably, queer students represented almost half of the depressed respondents, despite being only 1/5 of the survey group. They were twice as likely to seek therapy, but less likely to reach out to family. Wonder why. The Trevor Project survey showed a strong link between anti-LGBTQ plus hostility and poor mental health, with 90% affected by political climates. Additionally, anti-trans laws have been linked to a 72% rise in youth suicide attempts. So it's kind of a lot of statistics that are pointing to the fact that LGBTQ plus youth, we've known for a long time that LGBTQ plus youth are more likely to experience homelessness and a lot of other struggles, but mental health is one of them. And it's an epidemic. It's a real issue. And I think, it's an issue that's going to be especially salient over the next couple years, because it's one thing to not have the support of your family, perhaps, or even your community, but to know that maybe the federal government, maybe President Biden, has your back. Pete Buttigieg has your back. But when your family's not there, when your state's not there, when your community's not there, and you've got a president who is spouting anti-gay rhetoric on the regular, that's a recipe for people feeling very isolated and very scared.
It sure is. It's very scary. And, I know that I have been taking the attitude and the approach of, we're going to get through this, everything's going to be okay. But the more I think about some of the health issues that people are already experiencing just a couple of weeks past the election, and we're not even into the new administration yet. Mm-hmm. And I'm very worried about the health of this nation, and that it's hard to shoo that worry away.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It is. I mean, I think a best case scenario is that the administration starts a lot of the claims and sort of campaign promises and saber rattling rhetoric turns out to not be something that they can do right away. it turns out that there are things that that can't be done by executive order, things that fall away from priorities. And it turns out that a lot of what was said, a lot of the scary things that were said were just puffery. I think that would make a lot of people feel a little more at ease, that maybe that we have institutions that can still put guardrails on insanity and sort of fascistic autocratic thinking. That's my hope. I feel like that's the hope, is that there will be some moderating forces in Congress that won't go for some of these most extreme things. And that might at least signal to people who are really scared, there's at least some folks out there that aren't just going to let us slide into absolute mayhem.
Well, it's looking harder and harder. And one of the things that I really had to stop and think about today was when I read a piece about he tried to say, and by he I'm referring to the former and soon to be once again emperor of the United States, but he tried to say to us while he was in this campaign that he didn't know anything about Project 2025. And most of us know that was a load of what.
Yeah.
But if that were the case, if that was truly the case, then why is he trying to employ so many people who wrote it?
No, yeah. I mean, that was always a lie. That was always a lie. That was just because they knew that Heritage fucked up by putting that out when they did, because it showed people the playbook.
Yeah.
And so what's the answer? Oh, I don't know anything about that. Weird. That's not anything I have anything to do with, except that, in the first administration, it was Heritage, it was Federalist Society, it was all these groups that stacked the administration full of people. Trump is not someone who knows anything. And so he doesn't know who to put in places of power, except for people who express absolute loyalty to him. But when they have to fill the ranks of the rank and file, that's where these groups come in. That's where Heritage comes in. And they say, hey, look, we've got this binder full of scary white men that, that you can put into positions of power. And they happen to all be the ones who wrote Project 2025. The hope there also is, when you look at the first Trump administration, is there was this power struggle, this constant power struggle amongst people in the inner circle. And so no one lasted very long. So the hope is that some of these people who come in with these big ideas will get screwed by other people with other big ideas who want to be the big dog. And, they'll all Scaramucci themselves out of a job. And then we'll see what happens.
Maybe, because what we have to really worry about, I think, this time is the fact that whereas there were people who held guardrails in place, he is specifically looking to surround himself with people who are not going to create any guardrails. And he's going to try and circumvent everything that a normal person would do. And he's done a magnificent job of this in this go-round.
But the thing is, all of these people, these wackadoos, also are extremely egotistical people. And we're already seeing news stories about things like some of his other inner circle are tiring already of Elon Musk, who's basically flouncing around as co-president. So we'll see how long he lasts. And then it goes down the list. The next person who sticks their head up is going to be part of the circular firing squad for other people who want to be the big dog.
One can only hope.
Yeah.
And Richie, speaking of the craziness, good God, his dad is rolling in his grave, right? In a recent Arizona event, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., known for his anti-vaccine activism and ties to the Trump transition team, revealed intentions to replace 600 staff at the National Institutes of Health during a theoretical second Trump term. Well, Kennedy declared his plan, aiming to swiftly change personnel, saying, quote, 600 people are going to walk into offices at the NIH and 600 people are going to leave, not according to ABC News. Kennedy, who criticizes federal health entities, has a notable history of questioning vaccines, highlighted in his book, The Real Anthony Fauci. Presenting his Trump-aligned agenda, Kennedy emphasized removing, quote, special interests and the deep state from government. During the interview, he further suggested dubious health claims, asserting that keto diets might cure anorexia. Oh my God, don't get any ideas there, Richard Carpenter. Your sister would still be gone. Kennedy also praised Trump, attributing him with the, quote, an aura of greatness, end quote, while criticizing his own family for rejecting his view on vaccines. You know who this guy really reminds me of? I don't know if you watched the HBO series Succession, but he reminds me of the, I think, eldest son in the storyline, who is really kind of a secondary player, but is on a hunt for the White House himself. And he is kind of a Robert F. Kennedy Jr. character. I mean, he's got all these weird views, and he's just so out of touch with reality. It's hilarious. And most of the rest of the family, including, and it's kind of loosely based on idea of the family that, of course, owns News Corporation, the Murdochs. Right. But in this particular case, the eldest son is just 6 ways to Sunday out to lunch. So I don't know what we're going to do about this guy. I'm not sure whether he's going to make it through a confirmation hearing or not. I'm hoping that there's enough Republicans that will be opposed to him, as well as some of the other more obvious choices to kick to the curb, like Matt Gaetz. But I don't know. Again, I think we're going to have to wait for another couple of months and see just what happens and, you know, what this tale is going to tell.
I mean, with him, you almost can't write these people. I mean, it's almost like he's like a Dr. Strangelove character.
Yeah.
You know, because the outlandish stories, you know, was it the killing the bear or something and putting it in Central Park, the shark, you know, the cheating on Cheryl Hines with Olivia Nuzzi of New York Magazine, you know, the young journalist who was following his beat and ended up shacking up with him. Everything, the literal brainworms, like literally he had brainworms, you know, that caused, you know, quote, mental fogginess and, you know, and short memory loss. He's talked about, you know, things like raw milk and ivermectin as being, you know, cures for things. He at one point in the past said that poppers caused AIDS. I mean, he is literally completely deranged.
Well, maybe he's right about that one.
Oh my God, John McMullen. But it's
funny because I was just sitting yesterday having a hamburger at a restaurant down the street, and there was a whole gay softball team there wearing their uniforms, and the team is called the Poppers.
I love it. But no, he's a lunatic, and the thing is, they come out of the woodwork. You almost didn't know that there were so many outlandish lunatic figures in the world, and then they suddenly just exist. I mean, we're stuck with, you know, last time, like Rudy Giuliani with the melting shoe polish and the teeth, you know, and now we have a Robert Kennedy Jr. who looks like a piece of beef jerky that was left out in the sun for a year. And, you know, he's supposedly a paragon of health, even though he's riddled with brain worms, and he's going to be in charge of the NIH. I mean, give me a break. I hope that appointment doesn't happen. But
somebody sent me a photograph that was used yesterday in a meme, and it was a whole bunch of them, including Don Jr. and Don Sr. and Robert F. Kennedy and others who were aboard, presuming it was Trump's private jet, and they were eating McDonald's and they were holding up the boxes. And all that, you know, I could think about was what the person who sent it to me said, which was, I wonder how many millions McDonald's paid for this.
I don't know if McDonald's
so it was some sort of an endorsement, the way that they were holding up the cups and the box that the fries come in and stuff like that, because it had the logo right there.
Right.
And it was just like, that's really a weird thing to have on an airplane.
I mean, what it makes me think about is that Boeing did not test the tolerances of the bathroom in Air Force One to handle that. They're not ready for it. I don't know
No.
they're not ready.
No, they're not.
It's terrible.
Well, moving right along, following Trump's election victory, numerous individuals from marginalized communities, including Latino and LGBTQ plus people, received alarming texts. The FBI reported that after election racist messages expanded beyond black communities, stating, quote, some recipients reported being told that they were selected for deportation or to report to a re-education camp. Wow. One recipient, Diana Breyer, a lesbian, described receiving a disturbing message instructing her to report for an LGB re-education camp, referring to a non-existent executive order. She told the New York Times, quote, the timing is not a coincidence. There's a lot of concern among my queer friends about what's going to happen to us next. The FBI, in collaboration with the Justice Department, is investigating the messages, and some were traced back to a web address in Poland. There's a Polish chook in there somewhere. Trump's campaign denied involvement, stating, quote, the campaign has absolutely nothing to do with these text messages, end quote. Well, federal agencies continue now to search for the source. The thing that scares me the most about this story is that the Trump campaign said that the campaign has absolutely nothing to do with these text messages. And the reason that concerns me is because anytime anything comes from Trump, it's a lie. So maybe they have everything to do with it.
The thing that it makes me concerned about, I mean, like, it's obviously trolling. It's obviously just like, it's like stupid and meant to make people feel like, you know, afraid or whatever. What database, you know, maybe this is coming from Poland. I don't know where this is coming from. What database has people's phone numbers and their demographic information, you know, because it's not like I have not gotten one of these messages, you know, that's targeted at a Latinx person or a black person, you know, who has this information, you know, and then it makes me think about things like, well, who collects this information? Well, you know, when you sign up for Twitter, they get your phone number, they get
and
all your data.
They know exactly what spaces you're in and whose messages you're liking and retweeting. And
yeah, so, you know, it makes me wonder, where's this information coming from? It's coming from somewhere that has deep data, because, you know, I don't think that, you know, I don't know what the dark web is like, but what I do know is that there's some place where these trolls are getting a lot of demographic data and that are linked to cell phones. And that's very troubling to me. And like I said, that I would really be interested to find out if people who are getting these messages have Twitter accounts, because it would not surprise me at all if Elon Musk was funneling data out. Not that Musk himself is sitting there at the computer sending troll messages, but using the deep data that Twitter has as part of a propaganda machine, because that's why he bought Twitter. It really wouldn't surprise me at all. I mean, that sounds conspiratorial, but Occam's razor suggests that that would be a very plausible way that these messages are getting out there.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Would you like some good news?
Good news?
Some good news.
Is there such a thing?
There might be, even though it is rooted in some bad news, that there is, in fact, some good news. And on Tuesday, last week, a federal judge blocked a Louisiana law mandating the posting of the 10 Commandments in public school classrooms statewide. U.S. District Court Judge John W. DeGravelis declared the law unconstitutional on its face, stating, quote, it's coercive to students, end quote, and it forces them to view religious directives constantly without an option to opt out. The blocked law, set for January 1, required schools to display the 10 Commandments prominently. Attorney General Liz Murrill announced plans to appeal the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit following the ruling. The challenge came from diverse families, including Jewish, atheist, Presbyterian, and non-religious claimants. They argued, quote, the law unconstitutionally pressures students into religious observance, end quote. Louisiana lawmakers had recently passed another law permitting chaplains to work as counselors in schools Governor Jeff Landry remarked during the bill signing, quote, respect the rule of law, starting from the original lawgiver, Moses, right? Well, when you can walk on water, you come and talk to me about this.
You know, they are going to keep doing this bullshit forever until they get a Supreme Court that will agree with them. It's not going to stop. I mean, this 10 Commandments shit has been happening for decades. They just keep trying it. Localities, now state governments, probably the federal government under Trump is going to try this shit. You know, they're probably not going to get rid of the Department of Education because that's pretty difficult to do, but they're probably going to use it to say every school, every K through 12 school has to have the 10 Commandments up on the wall. And they're probably it's going to end up at the Supreme Court. And we're going to have to see how lame our First Amendment jurisprudence really is at this point.
It's interesting to me, too, that you'd think that at a time when more and more and more people are leaving the churches, not attending any sort of church, that we would have something like this able to slide through. And I think this is going to be one of those areas where we're going to see the rubber meet the road when it comes to people's blind support of Trumpism.
It's a good thought. I mean, it's part of the great sorting because there are decreasingly demographically younger people are less likely to be religious. But I think the people who are religious, especially evangelical, are extremely fervent and are extremely relentless. And, you know, if you look at things like certain religions are very good at at really getting people into positions of power. I feel like the evangelical movement and evangelicalism really likes to get people into positions of power locally and then statewide and then federally. In the same way that, you know, if you look at, you know, Mormonism also really likes to get people in positions of power in business too, you know, and in politics. You look at Mitt Romney, you know, you look at folks, you know, within that religion, there's just a way in which you can use the First Amendment in this kind of aggressive way, especially given how the Supreme Court has really allowed a lot of establishment to happen, and they'll just keep at it. They're relentless because, you know, there are folks like and I'm blanking on his name, but the guy who is going to Peter Hegseth or whatever, the Fox News guy who's going to be the new Secretary of Defense or nominated for Secretary of Defense,
right?
Is an extreme hardcore Catholic who has these tattoos that have phrases from the Crusades. That is the level of insanity that we're talking about. Their timelines are forever long. Yeah. And so they're going to keep fighting these fights forever.
I wish we could just get past it.
Me too.
Don't you? I mean, it's like, let's get real. There's nothing that seems real right now. And look, again, I can accept people who have conservative values and who disagree with me 180 degrees, you know, opposite me on public policy positions. But when it comes to some of this stuff, it's just so mind-boggling that you can have something in black and white right in front of you, and you still think that it's purple.
And it's specifically these kind of proselytizing evangelical type of religious folks, because I have friends of very, very deep religious faith who have very private, deep faith, and they believe in things that, you know, as an atheist, I don't believe in. They are not pressing them on anyone. It's their private relationship with their religion and with their faith, and it dictates how they structure their private personal lives. That's what this country is built upon, is really, again, you know, an ability to have free expression of religion. But, you know, the Establishment Clause has the part of it that says, but you can't force other people to hew to any certain religion. And that's the part where evangelicals and other proselytizing type of mainly Christians can't handle it. They need it to be part of the, imposed upon others.
Yeah.
In an imposition of religion, that's where I can't abide by it in any stripe, because I don't have a religion. People of other faiths don't agree with that religion. And it's when you get into this really ahistorical stuff where they're like, America was founded as a Christian nation. Well, if you look back at it, there were some weird ass ideas that the founding fathers had. There were deists in there. There were agnostics in there. It's not like they were all fucking going to, Joel Osteen's church and listening to shitty, Christian rock. That wasn't the case, it's just silly. It's ahistorical, and it's not reflective of where we ended up with our First Amendment. So anyway, it just, that drives me up a wall. And I'm glad to see that, this judge put the kibosh on this stupid Ten Commandments thing.
Yeah. At least
Good
for the
news.
moment. Yeah, that was good news. How about some more? The CDC is reporting that top sexually transmitted infections, STIs, decreased by 2% last year. That may not seem significant, but hold on. And it did mark a rare decline. But notably, primary and secondary syphilis diagnoses fell by 10%, especially among men who have sex with men. That's us. We saw a 13% reduction. The overall syphilis diagnoses, however, still rose by 1%, as not all stages saw declines. Gonorrhea also decreased by 7%, returning to pre-pandemic levels. Bad news, chlamydia rates remained stable. Dr. Jonathan Merman of the CDC attributes these declines to increased public health funding, sexual behavior changes, and new antibiotics like doxypep, which impacted syphilis trends. He said, quote, combined all of those activities led to some decreases. Despite the positive signs, Dr. Laura Bachman of the CDC notes that the importance of pushing forward with STI prevention efforts is still very important, and syphilis remains widespread, particularly in marginalized communities and certain regions, notably in the South, which threatens newborns with severe health risks. So if you're going to have a baby and you live in the southeastern United States, make sure that the baby uses a condom.
The real story here, I think, it's good news. It's a good news story. And really, when you look at the stats and you look at the reduction, especially with men who have sex with men, this is really, I think, a story about doxypep. I'm sure there are some other reasons, but really, doxypep in the past year or two has really taken off. After it kind of got the seal of approval from the CDC, it's a regime where it's doxycycline. You take it 24 to 48 hours after you've had sex, and it cuts the incidence of STIs significantly, dramatically. It went from being something that was kind of a marginal thing and really sort of amongst people, for instance, like sex workers, and sort of amongst different communities, to something that now is pretty mainstream. I get my my PrEP and doxypep from Mister, which is a really great company that provides no and low cost PrEP and doxypep in the U.S.
That's amazing, because here in the desert, the only thing I get from the Misters is cooled off in the summer.
But Mister's great. And it is now, when you sign up, it used to be just PrEP. But now when you sign up and you do your labs and stuff, and they ask you, would you like doxypep with it? And so I think that the increasing adoption of doxypep is a really fantastic thing for reduction of STIs, especially in the gay community. But, this is something to watch, because one of the things to worry about is the Biden administration. I don't actually, was it Biden maybe it was Obama, I forget, but I think it was one of them that made essentially PrEP free, under insurance, completely no cost.
Yeah, I think that came in through the Affordable Care Act.
I think it was, I think you're right, Affordable Care Act. And I think that might be something that the new administration might be eyeing to get rid of.
Which, for you racists who hate Obamacare, it's the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I saw like in always, who knows if memes are accurate, but someone was basically saying, I can't wait for Trump to get rid of Obamacare. And then the person responded, well, unfortunately, the Affordable Care Act provides, healthcare for millions of people. And the person says, well, I'm on the Affordable Care Act. What are you talking about? I just don't want Obamacare. There are people out there who
actually articulates exactly the reality in the state of Kentucky. And I'm not being funny about that or anything else like that. It's in Kentucky. Saw this prior to the last election. The Affordable Care Act is extremely popular in that state, but marketed as Obamacare. People hate it. It blows my mind. It makes my head want to explode off my shoulders. It just shows what a racist country that we live in.
And just the profundity of the low information voter. The low information.
The ignorance, yeah.
Yeah. Just the person who just hears like, well, I don't want that Obamacare. Well, what about the Affordable Care Act? It provides health care, on a marketplace, for everyone. Well, that sounds good. It's the same thing. And Obamacare was not, Obama didn't want to call.
Just keep that black name off the
label. Obamacare was a moniker given to it by the right wing to make it unpopular. And it stuck, even though they got it through. That is exhausting. And again, we've talked about this before. But
we're still, by the way, waiting. What's been now almost 8 years. We're still waiting for what that alternative healthcare plan is that Mr. Trump has.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We'll see. We'll see in the second administration. I mean, I'm sure under RFK Jr., they're just going to start sending us some turmeric pills in the mail, and that's about as good as we're going to get,
Right. Well, since we're talking about dumb people still, on October the 16th, Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, MTG, claimed on X, formerly Twitter, that, quote, transgender drugs are giving people cancer. Yeah, she cited a Daily Mail article about a University of California, Davis study on thyroid cancer rates in transgender veterans. That study, presented as a poster at the American Thyroid Association meeting, lacked peer review and a comparison to cisgender veterans. They'd found thyroid cancer in 0.341% of transgender female veterans. Not all individuals with cancer had been on hormone therapy. The researchers highlighted that their findings are preliminary and called for further investigation. Liam Hugh Canoli, a UC Davis spokesman, indicated that any possible connection requires further research and urged consultation with doctors before altering treatments. Experts, including the Endocrine Society, advised caution, noting limitations and indicating that the study doesn't apply to children. Greene's claims have been labeled as mostly false due to lack of conclusive evidence. As everything that comes out of that fucking bitch's mouth, it's false. I mean, first of all, she's citing the Daily Mail. Let's just start there. I mean, the Daily Mail is garbage. It's this UC Davis poster. I mean, that found just everything about it is just, wrong.
It's just silly. I mean, it's not credible stuff. I mean, this is like homeopathy level silly. It's like, it's not peer reviewed. Like, it has no comparisons. It found thyroid cancer in this like vanishingly small percentage of transgender female veterans, not all of whom were on hormone therapy. I mean, she just runs with garbage. She just says garbage stuff and runs with it. And is not checked on it by her constituency and by her fans, because it fits a narrative that they want to see. Some of these people, the Marjorie Taylor Greenes, the Lauren Boeberts,
Matt Gaetz's, the rapist guy from OSU in Ohio.
Balls.
The guy who's in the House of Representatives, the guy from Ohio who lit the wrestling.
Jim Jordan?
Yeah. They're all the same. They're all the same.
There's a term that came up in the first Trump administration, which I think is kakiocracy, I believe is what it is, which is rule by the absolute abject worst people. And we thought we had that the first time around. Yeah. Well, looking at this panel of nominees for this next time around makes the first Trump administration look like a bunch of Nobel Prize winners.
I mean, you'd think that people would have voted them out of office just to keep all of the hearings that will be held in 4 years off of TV.
Yeah.
Just so we wouldn't have to sit through it again, provided he's even still alive at that point. But here's the deal. I think that if you're the vice president and you don't do anything to stop it while it's going on, and it happens during your tenure when your ticket is elected, I think that you have to be held responsible if the running mate, who also was involved in this, is found to have been guilty of any of it. I think you're both guilty. So therefore, you both have to serve immense amounts of time locked up. But the only good news we're going to have is that when Trump finally does serve his sentence, it's going to be serving it for eternity in the hot place. So there. We have one story left, and I really want us to get to it, but I really want you to read it, Richie, because I'm not sure if I'm gonna scream or if I'm gonna cry. This is not a good news story.
Yeah, this is really an awful story.
It really rocked me.
So last Friday, November 15th, a California judge sentenced Samuel Lincoln Woodward, 26 years old, to life in prison without parole for the murder of Blaze Bernstein, a 19-year-old gay and Jewish former classmate. Woodward is a member of a neo-Nazi group who met Bernstein through a dating app. In January 2018, they met at a park in Newport Beach where Woodward stabbed Bernstein 28 times. Judge Kimberly Menninger stated that Woodward murdered Bernstein out of, quote, pure hate and rage, targeting the victim's sexual orientation and religion. After the murder, Bernstein's body was buried in a shallow grave and was discovered a week later. Evidence linked Woodward to the neo-Nazi group Atomwaffen. His defense attempted to argue the murder was spontaneous, but the jury found him guilty with a hate crime enhancement. During sentencing, Bernstein's mother emotionally recounted that her son's last moments were filled with terror, quote, looking at an Atomwaffe mask, end quote.
Just makes me want to puke.
It's just horrifying. One of the things here that is also, I'm glad that the jury found him guilty with the hate crime enhancement, right. Sentenced to, life in prison without parole, but that doesn't bring back Blaze Bernstein. And it doesn't change the fact that neo-Nazi groups like Atomwaffen exist and cause people to become, that people fall into these worlds of hatred where they feel no remorse, targeting and killing a young gay Jewish person, simply because of who they are. And the thing too that I think about here is, the hate crime enhancement part of this. It's really essential. This is a hate crime. This is absolutely a hate crime. And what I worry about is under, for instance, the new administration, will they water down or get rid of hate crime enhancement? Because the fact that this person was targeted for being gay and Jewish, we hear a lot of the fellow travelers in the MAGA world are anti-gay and are anti-Jewish. You see people like the Proud Boys and the neo-Nazis who are super happy that Trump won. How much purchase will they have over this administration? Will we see hate crime enhancements go away? or be watered down, or will federal prosecutors kind of not use them?
Yeah.
It's really a thing to think about, and something for it to pay attention to. There's a reason why we have these hate crime laws, is exactly these kinds of situations. And again, it does not bring back Blaze Bernstein and Samuel Lincoln Woodward, this awful person. I don't know when this person's life turned so horrific, how they fell into this neo-Nazi world, how their mind became so grotesquely twisted that they could just murder someone for who they are. It's really hard to process.
It is. Well, on that note, our telephone number is 878-768-8825, 878-768-8825. It's available to you 24/7, 365, and you can leave us a message. You can make suggestions for future discussion points. You can tell us what you think about any of the stories that we've talked about on this episode, and we will do our best to utilize those on an upcoming episode. If you wouldn't mind, we'd love to hear from you. It's one of the things I really miss about our doing the live show when we were taking phone calls live.
Mm-hmm.
But we also have email available to you, and it's info@richieandjohn.com, info@RICHIEANDJOHN.com. And if you would like to send us a note, we'll make sure that we take it to heart and to incorporate your thoughts into our upcoming episodes and discussions. And again, we really encourage you, if you have somebody that you'd like us to be talking to, or if there's a topic that you'd like us to cover, something that we can go into deeper than what we have just in terms of our opining in these newscasts, we would be happy to do that. So if there's something that you would like us to look at talking about, and would like to hear from somebody who's an expert in that area, just let us know. Again, info@richieandjohn.com. And all of this is available from our website, which is richieandjohn.com. We're also available now, not just as an audio podcast, but also as a video podcast, which you can find at YouTube. Just go and look and see why it was that God made sure that Richie and I had faces made for radio.
Exactly.
So I'm just kidding. I am just kidding. In fact, we just got back the pictures today from our photo shoot that we did while we were all together here in Palm Springs recently. And there's going to be some exhibition of some of those images in the very near future. If you want to get on our holiday card, not Christmas, but holiday, we observe people who are into observing Festivus as well as Hanukkah and Christmas and Kwanzaa. If you'd like to receive a card from us, be sure to send us your email address. You can do that by writing to info@richieandjohn.com as well, and we'll make sure that you are on our holiday card list. So with that, I will look forward to seeing you again on Saturday, Mr. Roy, and I hope you have a fantastic week ahead.
Yeah, you too.
Thank you. Talk to you later.
Thank you for joining us on Richie and John. This podcast is a production of the Mutual Broadcasting System and is available at richieandjohn.com, as well as most major podcast portals, including Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and Spotify.